Right. So, I have easily gotten over 100 DMs on Instagram since sharing that, Dan John says that you shouldn't do lunges, and, commenting about Stu McGill and Brian Carroll saying that you shouldn't do, Bulgarian split squats, or, Justin Kavanaugh commenting on heavy hip thrusts. I don't know why people are messaging me to explain their reasoning, but apparently I'm supposed to be explaining all of their reasons. Meanwhile, you guys can just go listen to any of their videos. I literally linked people to the video where Brian Carroll explains why, and people were like, I'm not going to watch that, so just tell me why. And I'm like, it would take me longer to write it out and for you to read it than for you just to watch his video. The video is very short. It's not like, this is a very long thing here. So in any case, here's the point, folks, and this is why I'm making another video on this. Konstantinov, I think is how you pronounce his name. He deadlifts with a rounded back. Michael Jordan plays with his tongue sticking out the whole time, huh? Usain Bolt, that's an interesting one. People will point out all kinds of stuff that he does wrong. Liu Zhaojun, a lot of knee valgus there. Something for you to consider and think about. And this is just the way it is. Sometimes the elite athletes can do the things and they do them, quote, incorrectly, okay? And it works for them because they're anatomically different than you. And so here's a radical concept. I know this is going to blow your mind. It should be obvious, though. Not everyone squats the same. Yeah. I don't do well with a wide stance squat. Doesn't work well for me. But there are plenty of people who have very wide stances. I also don't do well with a very narrow stance. Yeah. A very narrow stance would not work for me. And God bless him, because he helped me and didn't charge me a dime, but Kelly Starrett, the whole thing of squatting with your feet straight ahead did not work with me. Okay, squatting with my feet straight ahead caused impingement because I have FAI in both hips. I have cam and pincher impingement in both hips. So squatting with my feet straight ahead is actually very painful. It's not going to work. My femur crashes into my acetabulum and pinches my labrum. It's very, very painful. So, not everything works for everyone. But what you might want to consider here is that whenever a lot of the high-level coaches that have worked with very high numbers of athletes start making an observation and saying, yeah, this movement doesn't work for the majority of people, you might want to listen. The problem with the Bulgarian split squat is the fact that the rear foot's elevated. This creates torque on your pelvis. For a lot of people, you're going to have SI problems. The heavy hip thrust. I can't remember who it was I saw. Someone recently did a video talking about how they always felt the hip thrust in their back instead of their glutes. Yeah, whenever you go heavy, it changes your mechanics because now you're trying to move weight instead of using the muscle. And so heavy hip thrusts really are not an effective thing for the majority of people. The majority of people start compensating and using their low back instead of their glutes. And so now you're missing the point. And I don't think Kavanaugh made the comment that you can't do any type of hip thrust. I think he was pretty clear about heavy hip thrusts. Just like how the comment on Bulgarian split squats was about heavy Bulgarian split squats, because that's now putting excess weight on the connective tissue. And I believe Dan John's comment was in regards to weighted lunges. So, or if you're doing a body weight lunge, maybe a walking lunge or a reverse lunge, I assume that this is very different than if you start loading it up and doing, forward lunges or something with a heavy load. Context is everything, folks. And I will completely agree on the lunges thing. I have seen people injure their back leg. I've seen people blow their quad off. Because why? Because you're using your back leg to help you stand up when you go super heavy. Yeah. I've seen people injure their hip flexor doing Bulgarian split squats. Why? Because you're using your back leg when you go super heavy. So when you go light, you can really focus on using the front leg only. But whenever you start going super heavy and trying to max out on these things, oh yeah, you start doing things differently. And something I'll point out to you, that the whole Cal Dietz thing, the hand-supported single leg squat, that's not a lunge, and that's also not a Bulgarian split squat. So I don't know why people keep bringing that one up as some type of exception. That's not a lunge, and that's also not a Bulgarian split squat. Anyways, I think people need to start thinking about connective tissues. And that isn't to say that you shouldn't load connective tissues, but perhaps there are certain movements where we place more load on the connective tissue than we do on the muscle. And at that point, maybe you have to start questioning why you're using that movement.